Welcome to Endoxa Learning, helping students to make strong, coherent arguments within their essays and exams.
Endoxa Learning visualises academic arguments, condensing down complicated arguments into easy-to-understand argument graph diagrams.
We present arguments step by step, always putting the argument first, with relevant facts and context included exactly where they are needed.
The student can use the graphical interface to make their own arguments for use as visual essay plans and as a revision guide.
All of the argument graphs are mapped to the current specifications, allowing students to learn all of their subject content whilst also developing the argumentation skills needed to be successful in their exams and essays.
Endoxa Learning, putting the argument first. Hi, I'm Josephine from Endoxa Learning. Do you find that your students often struggle to make strong arguments within their essays and exams? Often learning the facts within the textbooks, but struggling to identify the fundamental arguments within their subjects? Endoxa Learning provides a solution to these problems. We understand students need to make strong arguments in order to get the best marks, so we have designed our software to help students master these academic arguments. Endoxa Learning puts arguments at the forefront of learning and embeds the facts and context only when and where it is truly needed. This learning method not only helps students to develop their argumentation skills whilst learning all of their academic content, but also ensures students are more confident at analysing and creating strong, coherent arguments within their essays and exams. Endoxa Learning is centred around three fundamentals. Let me take you through them. Firstly, visualisation. Academic arguments are usually written as prose in essays and books. However, the arguments in these sources are often hard for students to grasp and interpret. The process of visualising complex information makes it much easier to understand. At Endoxa Learning, we present academic arguments visually as diagrams called argument graphs. Displaying academic arguments visually not only results in an enormous reduction of the word count, but also makes the structure of the argument immediately clear to students. Secondly, argument steps. In Endoxa Learning, we break down even the most complex academic arguments into manageable chunks, allowing students to learn independently. Each step of the argument graph allows students to think critically about the argument at hand and add their own supporting or counter-arguments and case studies. Thirdly, argument types. Each argument step is based on an argument type. Within Endoxa Learning, there are 15 different argument types. The 15 types have been derived from argumentation theory, but have been simplified for A-level use to allow any academic argument to be made. The argument types are used to encourage students to think critically about the argument while also improving their reasoning skills. Visualisation, the step-by-step approach, and the use of argument types make Endoxa Learning a powerful tool for students to learn and to construct their own strong and coherent arguments. If you would like to find out more about the abundance of academic and educational research supporting our techniques, our white paper is available on the Endoxa Learning website. Now, let's take a look at the subjects supported by Endoxa Learning. We cover subjects in which arguments are fundamental, including humanities, social sciences and business studies. Let's have a look within a subject. All of our subject content is mapped to the current specifications. You can filter the subject topics to your specific exam board by clicking on the AQA, EdXL or OCR tabs at the top of the page. Let's click on a subtopic to see the chapter within. For each chapter, there is a progress wheel which allows students to track how many lessons they have completed. The students click on a lesson and can view either the whole lesson or their own edited version of the final argument graph.
Hi, I'm Julian from Endoxa Learning. Endoxa Learning represents a new type of pedagogy, which we call argument first. Normally, students learn the facts first and then start to think about the key arguments. Textbooks are strong on facts, but generally weak on argument. Endoxa Learning puts the arguments first. The argument graph strips away everything else to present the student with the key points of an argument. Factual and contextual information are embedded into the argument graph so the student sees how to deploy examples and case studies to support their position. We know that using a computer for education is not a magical solution to the students' problems. There is a lot of good educational software out there, but the right tool has to be used for the right job. The best educational software follows certain design rules. Firstly, the lessons stick to the course specifications. The content is very visual, using diagrams, videos, and so on. The student works interactively with the software, not passively, so it doesn't get boring. And lastly, complex tasks are broken into simple steps. There is nothing like this for mastering argument. There are some good websites offering flashcard and quiz-based lessons, which may be good for learning facts, but there is nothing that is going to help students with argumentation skills. We have worked hard to design Endoxa Learning right. In each subject, the lessons are aimed at possible exam questions, covering the whole of the A-level specification. It's very visual, and arguments are broken into easy-to-understand steps, and it's highly interactive. Students learn arguments and then they critique them and add their own thoughts. Each argument step includes critical questions that challenge the student to think how the reasoning could be supported or undermined. The system keeps track of argument strength and coherence, so the student gets immediate feedback on any changes they make. And their final argument graph serves as their visual essay plan for coursework or for revision. It's a lot more interesting than yet another PowerPoint presentation. Endoxa Learning is student-centred. Students work at their own pace on tasks set by the teacher. We expect teachers to adopt a flipped classroom approach. Students work on the lessons in their own time and then return to the classroom to discuss the results. But it can also be used as a blended learning tool during class time. Endoxa Learning is ideal for differentiated learning. All students can be asked to work through a lesson to learn an argument, but the more able students can go further with critiquing and modifying it, adding to their own argument graphs. Endoxa Learning is not a critical thinking course. The primary purpose of Endoxa Learning is to learn and practice the argumentative content that an A-level course requires. When those analyse and evaluate questions come up, we want students to know how to answer them. But the argument types used in Endoxa Learning are a rigorous system of critical thinking that the student picks up while they are studying their subject. Once a student has learnt the system, they can rapidly understand any new argument in any subject. They can graph their own arguments much quicker than they can write an essay, and the teacher can check it faster too. In the same way, argument graphs are an efficient revision tool for exams. We think it makes sense to teach argumentative content in an argumentative way, not in a discursive way, and that argument graphs are best for this purpose. This is at the heart of our argument-first approach. Along the way, students using Endoxa Learning will improve their argumentation skills, and this way of thinking will be transferable to other subjects and endeavours at university and beyond. Now, let's look at a lesson in Endoxa Learning. A lesson in Endoxa Learning has two parts. First, we show you how to argue for a conclusion, and then you can modify the argument to bring in your own ideas. In this video, I'm going to show you how this works. In this case, we're looking for a lesson titled "The UK Parliament is Sovereign." This lesson is in the Politics A-level course. So I'm going to click on Politics, and then UK Politics, Parliamentary Relations. The lesson is in the Parliamentary Sovereignty section. So I click on the lesson. Here is the first stage of the lesson. This statement is the final conclusion of the argument. Every lesson is aimed at a possible exam question. In this case, it could be "The UK Parliament is sovereign, discuss," or it might be "To what extent is the UK Parliament sovereign?" This lesson has 12 stages. You can see the stage numbers at the bottom of the screen. The argument is presented in stages 1 to 11. On stage 12, the last stage, you can modify the argument yourself. Endoxa, the assistant, gives instructions and advice. We get started by clicking Next. Here's the first step of the argument graph. The premises are at the top and the conclusion is underneath. In between is the argument type. You can click on the box to find out more. The purple bar represents the strength of the argument step. You can see whether the argument step is pro or con the conclusion. You get the argument step in prose and the critical questions. These help you to critique the reasoning. There's a video to explain each argument type. Now we'll go to stage 3. Here we see how argument steps can form chains of argument. The second step reaches the conclusion we're looking for, that the UK's Parliament is sovereign. But we're not done. This lesson is going to look at a couple of counter-arguments and refute them. This is a scenario box. It gives contextual information. You can click and read what it says. And then you can dismiss it so it doesn't clutter the argument diagram. Here is a counter-argument that refutes one of the premises of our main argument. A blue statement is true and a red statement is false. The counter-argument has made this statement false. But this counter can be defeated by evidence. An evidence statement modifies the strength of the argument step. You can see the purple bar has disappeared. This argument step is defeated, and the vital premise is true again. Here's the whole of the argument so far. Now we'll look at a different counter-argument. The brain icon is a knowledge box. You can click it to get factual information. This counter-argument causes a conflict at the final conclusion. The original assumption was that this statement was true, but the reasoning of the counter-argument makes it false. So the statement is conflicted and it's greyed out. There's a video here to explain this. But this can be fixed by undermining this counter-argument in a similar way to the first one. Now we can look at the whole argument graph of the lesson. This is a visual representation of the whole argument. It can be a visual essay plan or a revision tool. Next, we will look at how you can change the argument and add your own ideas. On the last stage of the lesson, you can change anything. There are some short animations to show you the basics, longer explanation videos that go into more detail, and a definition of each argument type. I'm going to add a new argument step. I've already added 2 new statements to the argument graph. And now I'll add one more using the statement button. Now I can connect them to make a new argument step. Don't worry about the menu of argument types. You'll get used to them as you use the software. Now this new statement can be used to attack the evidence statement from the original argument. If dissolving the regional parliaments is practically impossible, then it can't be done. So now we have made a counter-counter argument. You can change the original argument as much as you like. It saves changes automatically, so you can go do something else and come back to it. Once you are happy with your work, it can be submitted to the teacher. We'll explain how that works in another video.
Encouraging students to edit their argument graph with their own ideas and opinions ensures that every student has a unique visual essay plan, which is clearly structured and allows students to easily write an argumentative essay.
Now we are going to take a look at the teacher dashboard. Here you will create classes, set tasks and monitor student progress. Let's see how it all works. Firstly, adding a class. Click on classes and then add new class. You can now add your class name and the subject from the drop-down menu. Now press Save Class to complete your class creation. Now the class has been created, you can invite students. Click on the Invite Students button and enter in your student school email addresses one by one, separated by commas. This will send each of your students a personalised Endoxa Learning link. If for any reason a student has not received their link, you can always generate this by clicking Copy Invite Link and sending it them directly via email. Now, how to add a task. Select a class from the drop-down menu. Select the lesson you want your students to complete, a task type, and then personalise instructions. Finally, select a due date. Press save and your task has been set. Once the task has been set, you can monitor the task. Select the task you want to monitor, and here you can see which students have started, finished and submitted a graph. Click View to see the changes the student has made to the argument graph. Here you can see the changes the student has made to the argument graph. You can also see comments from the student and respond with feedback or questions using the messenger service. So that was a quick run through of the teacher dashboard. Let's see what other training is available with Endoxa Learning. At Endoxa Learning, we provide each school with a wealth of support. Your school will receive a personalised one-to-one training session, which will provide a comprehensive overview of all the Endoxa Learning features and functions, whilst also providing an opportunity to ask questions to one of our dedicated teacher team.
So now you know more about Endoxa Learning, get in touch today to start your subscription and watch how putting the argument first will help your students to truly succeed.